Hello, Oshkosh friends. It is tax day here in Wisconsin and across the United States. And most of us, no matter where we live, urban, rural, or suburban, no matter the color of our skin or the language we speak, most of us believe that it's everyone's job to pay their fair share of taxes.
Yeah. Patriotic.
Taxes are how we fund our schools and our roads and our clean water and our defense. They are vital to the public good. Nobody likes paying their taxes, but if we all pay our fair share, we can have the kind of society that everyone deserves to grow up in. Those are our values. Those are the values for most Wisconsinites, but they're not Ron Johnson's values. And because of Ron Johnson and Republicans like him, it's not how the system works. In Ron Johnson's America, billionaires pay a tiny fraction of the tax rate that working class and middle class Wisconsinites pay. The average single worker makes $45,000 a year and pays a 22% effective tax rate. The wealthiest Americans, the billionaires, pay 4%. And that's exactly how Ron Johnson likes it. Ron Johnson says he thinks the ultra wealthy already pay their fair share. Do they pay their fair share?
No.
Is 4% from billionaires and 22% from regular workers fair?
Absolutely not.
Well, Ron Johnson thinks that the ultra rich, maybe we're paying too much, because when he had the power to do something about this, thank you. Ron Johnson apparently thought that the ultra rich were paying too much, because when he had the power to do something about this, when Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress were passing their tax scam, Ron Johnson said, hold on. He wouldn't vote for the bill unless they added another giant tax cut that benefited his billionaire mega donors the most. Ron Johnson added a provision to the 2017 tax bill that gave him personally a giant tax cut. It gave his billionaire mega donors a tax cut worth hundreds of millions of dollars in the first year. And it gave the rest of us either nothing or pennies. The bottom 2/3 of the American public had to split 1/25 of the benefit, but the top 1% got more than 3/5 of the benefit. This was a tax cut for the ultra rich, and it's exactly what Ron Johnson wanted, and it's why he cannot stay in the United States Senate.
Yeah.
And now what does Ron Johnson want to do? Ron Johnson is celebrating this tax day by endorsing, well, let me rephrase that. This tax day, we're noticing that Ron Johnson has endorsed Republican Senator Rick Scott's plan to raise taxes on 32% of Wisconsinites. Ron Johnson wants to bring down taxes on billionaires and drive up taxes on working Wisconsinites, and we won't stand for it. A study found that if Ron Johnson and Rick Scott got their way, middle-class households would see their taxes increase by an average of $450. Ron Johnson and his Republican colleagues oppose legislation like President Biden's new plan for a billionaire fair share tax, but they want to increase taxes on working families. In what world do we think that teachers and firefighters and farmers and laborers should pay more in taxes than billionaires? Apparently only in Ron Johnson's world. The difference could not be more clear. Democrats in Congress, President Biden, are fighting to ensure that we have a fair tax system that brings down taxes on the middle class by raising them on those who can afford to pay more, the billionaires and people with hundreds of millions of dollars flowing in. Republican politicians are working to cut taxes to their giant mega donors and stick the rest of us with the bill. You can see this playing out in Congress too. Representatives Ron Kind, Gwen Moore, and Mark Pocan have been working around the clock to pass legislation that reduces costs, that lowers costs for middle-class Wisconsinites. They passed legislation like the American Rescue Plan, the Affordable Insulin Now Act that caps the price of insulin at $35 a month and reduces costs for the almost 400,000 Wisconsinites who rely on insulin. President Biden's billionaire fair share tax will demand that the top 0.1% of Americans can no longer get away with paying pennies on the dollar while the rest of us pay our fair share in taxes. But in Congress, every single Wisconsin Republican has consistently opposed anything that would make our tax system fairer. It's a bad deal for the middle class. At a moment when people are struggling with higher costs, we need to have taxes paid by those who can afford it the most so we can reduce the burden on the people who need to struggle to make ends meet. This tax day, we can all agree that working Wisconsinites shouldn't be paying for billionaires' tax bills. We can all agree that politicians like Ron Johnson, who give themselves giant tax cuts and give giant tax cuts to billionaires, should be out of a job come this November. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce former Democratic Assembly Leader, my friend, Oshkosh State Representative Gordon Hintz. Thank you, Gordon.
Well, thank you, Ben. The winter of our discontent with our U.S. Senator Ron Johnson continues. April 18th, tax day today. My name is Gordon Hintz. I've had the good fortune of representing Oshkosh for the past 16 years in the state assembly. And during that time, I've talked to thousands of voters, knocking on their doors. I've worked to make our community a better place to live, and I've advocated for responsible budgets that fund our public services, our kids' schools, our criminal justice system, our highways, and our roads, while also trying to make sure that we're keeping more money in the pockets of the middle class and working class in the state of Wisconsin, and by having a fair system. There's a big difference between that kind of representation and those kind of policies than what we have with U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, who seems so indifferent, not just of our state, but of in this community, where recently he said, we don't need 1,000 good paying manufacturing jobs because we have enough jobs here already. These are jobs that would have helped our community, would have put people back to work, would have increased the number of good paying jobs and benefits with the UAW here. And the reality is that decision, like the decision on taxes, has been made because it doesn't fit into Ron Johnson's self-serving agenda, which seems time after time again not to be trying to solve how we reduce the deficit or the debt, how we fund public services, but how he tries to fulfill a self-serving agenda that tries to find ways to enrich himself and enrich his biggest donors. We've seen time after time the last few years, despite campaigning on our budget deficit and how it's unsustainable, Ron Johnson going to bat to make sure that we zero out or significantly reduce the tax liability of the richest individuals. Now, when you do tax cuts like the ones Governor Evers enacted during his time as governor, you put more money in the pockets of people that are going to spend it. And everybody can agree that's a good way to spend, to stimulate the economy. Because when you have people that spend all their disposable income, when they have more of it, that's what's going to happen. But when you give the Diane Hendricks, the Dick Ulines, you eliminate their tax liability, they're not going to spend it. They're not going to hire more people unless they can make more money. They're ultimately just going to pocket that money. And we've seen what's happened with income inequality during this same time. That is what happened since Ron Johnson's been in office, contrary to what his campaign pledges are. And that's what happened this last time when we saw, I don't even know if there were any other U.S. Senate Republicans who were working on it, but Senator Ron Johnson made sure that he got that final exemption in there to cut the tax liability and eliminate it for the biggest donors, for the wealthiest individuals. No one loves paying taxes, but the worst kind of tax is one that wastes money and that doesn't provide value. Now, no one resents somebody getting rich, making money, being successful, but the expectation as an American, and certainly as a Wisconsinite, is that you pay your fair share, that you don't get treated differently, that we all have a stake in what our services are. And the fact that time after time, Ron Johnson's treated people under two systems, one that doesn't have to pay taxes, one that gets out of it, and then the rest of us. The fact that we are seeing, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, Ron Johnson endorsing a GOP plan proposed to go after the middle class and working class, raising taxes on 32% of all Wisconsinites, as if that is the way to get to fairness, as if the problem and the injustice of our tax system is that the working class isn't paying enough, if that's the problem. The difference couldn't be more striking between Ron Johnson and where the people of Wisconsin are, and certainly where the candidates on the Democratic side for U.S. Senate are. So we have doublespeak, we've got a record, we've got a hypocrite, And it's time on this tax day to highlight the record, to pull back the curtain, and to say enough is enough. We can't continue to go in the direction that Ron Johnson is advocating. We should treat everybody fairly. We should all have skin in the game, and we shouldn't have to continue paying for Senator Ron Johnson's self-serving agenda. And the only way to do that is to vote him out of office in November, and we can meet next tax day a year from now and talk about the push and the progress that we have made to a more fair and equitable tax system. With that, I think, so thank you very much. I'm sure we'll be happy to answer any questions from all of you here.